Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us again in the spirit of liberty, and appreciate everyone jumping in right away. And for those of you catching this later, make sure you hit the notification thing, and then you'll get a notification. If you're like me, I forget about live streams and things that are coming up. So make sure you hit the notification, make sure you subscribe, do all that good stuff. We'll give people a couple minutes to get on here. I will again make an attempt to pay attention to the live chat. I try, but I can get really distracted by it. And so anyway, I'll do my best. Let me know if the audio and everything sounds good on there. But we are going to pick back up talking about a subject we started on a couple weeks ago. And I got a lot of really good feedback after that program. I think this is a subject that a lot of people are struggling with. A lot of people need help in. Of course, we took a break from it last week. And frankly, I kind of needed a break. This is really a very heavy, difficult subject. I asked for recommendations about different people to possibly talk to, and I am going to be talking to two individuals next week. I'm planning on just one more week on this subject, but next week I'm planning on having two guests on the show, and both of these individuals have worked with people that have been battling this and have helped get people victory over it. And so I don't want to just get on here and just talk about how bad pornography is, even though that's what we did last week, and we're going to do some more of that this week. I also want to help people get victory over it, because it is a stronghold in many people's lives, and something that I believe that a person can get victory over it. And so I wanted to talk to two people that have some experience in this and that have seen the results and kind of know how to help people, maybe know a little bit more about what people are going through. So make sure you join us live next week. It'll all be live with them, and hopefully, maybe we'll be able to take some questions or something. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that. Another thing that I had some recommendations given to me on was just on I had briefly mentioned 2 weeks ago that I was going to talk about like the human trafficking part of the pornography industry, which is what we're going to talk about today. And let me tell you something, looking into that is just a deep, dark, black hole of just awful misery. It was not, and I think it's very important that all of us, and myself included, I protect my mind and my innocence as much as possible. And I'm just going to be honest, I had to quit looking into it. I watched some documentaries on some of these things, and I had to quit watching them because honestly, it was just so bad, some of the stuff that was being discussed, some of the subject matter. And I get it. These are real problems. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to bury my head in the sand on this. But at the same time, we do need to be careful that we just don't completely defile ourselves. But in talking to many different people and in talking to some different pastors about this very thing, one of the things that people have brought up is how something that often helps people get victory over this and helps them to stop looking at pornography is when they learn about the origins of, or the industry, the people behind it. When you learn about the victims, it is something that every decent individual is absolutely repulsed by it. And one thing we have to understand when it comes to the viewers of pornography, not all of them are just these like reprobate perverts that are out there. Obviously, these people out there viewing child porn and stuff like that, there's no hope for those people. And we all know what the solution is for those people. But, it is normal for someone to want to look and lust. You have to get that under control. You have to do that. But normal people can struggle with this. Decent people, they can struggle with this. And so when it comes to learning about the human trafficking side of it, I think it's something that helps decent people get over it because of the fact that they are repulsed by, exploiting children, human trafficking, all those things. And there is, when it comes to pornography and human trafficking, these are kind of the same industry in many ways. And I'm telling you, I think there's a lot of lies that people are telling themselves when it comes to viewing pornography. And you just got to understand these things are lies. And obviously, there's going to be exceptions. What I'm going to talk about, some of the things that are brought up, the article I read, it's not going to represent 100% of the people involved. But when you understand that it is a huge percentage, when it's a large portion of it, you're gonna have to admit that if you are involved in pornography at all, you are in one way or another contributing to the human trafficking industry. And you can tell yourself all you want that you're not, but I think by the end of this, you'll understand just how you are. And pornography is something that is very immoral, and it is devastating what it is doing to individuals, and it's devastating what it is doing to our country and to our morals. And we've got to stand against this stuff. The biggest thing you can do is, as an individual, is just not participate in it in any way, shape, or form. So I want to start out by going to an article. And again, there's a lot of articles on the internet. I don't look into the background of all these things. I don't check on who these people are on a lot of stuff, but just different articles and things I come across that I find interesting, I like to share. So I want us to go ahead and to take a look at one, and let me get it on here. And this is Debunking 4 Myths About Human Trafficking. And it goes on to say, myth number 1, pornography is harmless. Okay, that is a myth, and I would agree that is a myth. It says pornography is the leading and driving engine of demands for today's commercial sex industry. The science behind pornography addictions are real and present dangers that must be understood. Fight the New Drug, 2019. Pornography addictions are created when a dopamine is released within the brain and a rush is experienced upon viewing sexually oriented material. This rush is a normal reaction within the human brain to sexual stimuli. However, in the context of pornography consumption, one must seek increasingly extreme, more frequent, and deviant content in order to get to that same feeling. Over time, this can lead to neurological damage in the brain, sexual dysfunctions such as erectile dysfunction, and decreased interest in relationships. This is from Covenant Eyes 2014. It also normalizes and eroticizes commodified sexual experiences, void of human relationship, deviant sexual behaviors, and attitudes hostile to women. Now, and again, I forgot to do a parental guidance alert on this one. So again, young people, if you watch this, get your parents' permission. Parents, you might want to listen to this first before letting your kids watch this. So first off, I don't know the science behind a lot of that stuff. I've never been addicted to drugs, pornography, anything like that. But at the same time, it does seem to make sense, because when it comes to pornography, there's all kinds of different levels of it out there. And it does seem that, the more you're in it, the more that you need. And it does get to, increasingly violent things, increasingly perverted things. It starts involving people younger and younger. And it is something that there's no doubt it messes with people's brains. And I'm not going to get on here and pretend like I'm a scientist and I understand all these brain things. But, I will say that, over the years, I've dealt with a lot of people that are addicted to things. And it's amazing how many people will throw their lives away, throw their marriage away, throw their careers away for a drug, for alcohol, for something that they're just going to watch on a screen. They will literally just destroy the physical relationship that they have with their wife, because they've just so much they've got to have what they're watching. You tell me that's not an addiction. We've all just sat there and we've scratched our head before at people that lose their jobs over a drug. It's like, why would you work with this company for all these years and build this career only to throw it all away for some alcohol? Why would you do that? And I tell you, addiction is a powerful thing. People lose control. People need more and more. You hear some of the stories about these overdoses and about some of the side effects of some of these drugs. When you hear about what cocaine does and PCP and all these other things, and it's like, why would anybody ever do that? And the truth is, they don't start out on that. They start out on something smaller, but eventually they need more and more and more. And, according to people a lot smarter than I am, a lot of the same part of the brain that wants those drugs, it's the same way when it comes to pornography. But I think with pornography, it's a lot easier to convince yourself you're not hurting yourself because physically you're not doing anything to yourself that you can see, okay? Obviously, you're doing something to your brain. There's no doubt about that. But people have got to recognize the dangers of this. And notice one of the things that it said in that article too, it mentioned the normalizes and eroticizes commodified sexual experience. A lot of people do just see women and the sexual relationship as just a commodity. Well, this is just something that people need, and they're trying to seek it out without marriage. Okay, and that's been going on for a long time, where people have been thinking that they have some right to a sexual relationship with someone that they're not even married to. And as a result of that, that's led to people saying, well, you know what, you don't even have to be in a committed relationship. A lot of people used to say, well, as long as you're engaged, once you're engaged, it's okay because you're going to marry that person anyway. No, it's not okay if you're engaged. But then it's like, well, as long as you're in a relationship, and as long as if you're in a committed relationship, it's okay, even if you don't have a ring on the finger yet. And then, now we're to the point where just do it just for fun. And so as a result of that, because of the fact that people think I can have this physical relationship, I can get this pleasure from someone and I don't have to care about them. That's not a good thing. And then we wonder why, you have more and more women getting treated bad, getting abused, being seen as objects and all these things. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we have normalized, sexual relationships, outside of marriage. And that's not good. And pornography does that as much as anything. What you're seeing on pornography is not something that's about married people and involving married people and for married people. So you're getting your mind twisted on even what the sexual relationship is for and what it's all about. You're getting it twisted on that. And then again, people in that need for more, they need to see something different. And that's why, they've got to go to different things. And apparently violence is a big thing in pornography. And again, then we wonder why there's all this violence against women. There's no doubt this stuff contributes to it because men are seeing them just as an object. And this happened as a result of immorality. It didn't happen because we didn't have enough feminism being pushed and taught. No, it happened because of a lack of morality. If anything, feminism has contributed to this attitude more than anything else. So let's go ahead and read a little bit more. It says, at the same time, what is often depicted in pornography actually is sex trafficking on camera. This is 100% true anytime children under 18 are featured in pornography. Now, let me just say this too. Okay, now it says it's 100% true if they're under 18. Now, why is it saying that? Why is that a part of human trafficking? Well, because of the fact that it is illegal. Okay, now as Christians, we are not just about what is legal or illegal, but it's about what is moral. Okay. And so, legally speaking, someone under 18 is not able to make that decision. So, do we as Christians just think automatically that the day someone turns 18, they are able to, make that decision? You got to understand, too, there's a lot of different maturity levels. And, again, this is never moral. It is never okay. But are we really sure that the people that are involved in these things, especially the women, are we totally sure that this is actually something that they are for? Because there's another thing in America today, that anything is okay when it comes to the physical relationship, as long as it's consensual. That's the magic word. As long as it's consensual, it's okay. And that's that's a twisted thinking too. But and it says more on this. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but let's go ahead and read a little bit more. So it says, if an individual consents to certain types of scenes or pictures, but is later pressured or tricked into something else, consent is no longer present. So this is still speaking legally here. Traffickers will often film the exploitation of their victims and then upload the material to pornography sites. Due to lack of regulation of the pornography industry, film editing or pressure or force put on the actors, the viewer cannot tell whether what they are seeing is consensual or not. Additionally, victims say that pornography was part of how their traffickers groom them to show them how to behave sexually. So, again, we don't know what all was going on, and for us to just assume everyone involved is okay, that's pretty messed up. Okay, and then the fact too, the inhuman trafficking. Okay, now we all know a lot of what human trafficking is about too. It's not just the pornography, but it is about prostitution and things. And this is how they train people. This is how they teach people, and young boys and girls, and how they treat, how they teach them how to behave to give their clients what they want. They have them watch these things, folks. The stuff this is being used for is just so wicked. Again, any saved person, so you've got to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. Okay, you've got to think about these things. Let these facts just ruin it for you. That's what you need to do, because this should ruin it for you, because it isn't. It's not as it appears. Okay, it's not as you think. Even in Hollywood. Okay, think about how many stories we've heard in Hollywood about in Hollywood, supposedly too, in a lot of their movies that are supposedly wholesome. Okay, how many stories have we heard about just the treatment of the actors on those shows? Look how many child actors and actresses just turn into absolute crazy nut job basket cases. I mean, look at how many child stars that are supposedly making the wholesome stuff, that's for the children, that's, for kids. Look how many of them get involved in such weird, twisted things, I mean, and then even some of the people from the past, you've got, the Doogie Howser guy that was like a child star and famous. But then, look, at a young age, what happens to him? He comes out as a homo. Why is that? There's no doubt, like so many of these child stars, who knows what kind of abuse and stuff he put up with. And here's another interesting thing too. This is just about Hollywood. Look at what happens to anyone in Hollywood who starts to speak up about the junk that goes on behind the scenes in Hollywood. Look what happens when they start talking about the things that they do to children. Look at what happens to them. They all of a sudden, all these scandals come out about them. And why is that? Well, because they're all a bunch of scumbags, but it's like they've got dirt on all of them. But then as soon as someone dares to say something, then they nail you with it, and it intimidates the other ones into silence. That maybe do have somewhat of a conscience left. But folks, all this is just in Hollywood. Children are exploited in Hollywood. Women are taken advantage of in Hollywood. And do you really think it's not going to be way worse in the pornography industry? I mean, folks, just a little bit of common sense. But, pornography is not intended for you to think about these things. These things are put out in a way to, again, to show a fantasy, something that is completely fake, something that's completely not real, and you not fall for it. So let's look at another myth from this article, and that is prostitution is different because it's a woman's choice. And it's funny how you can tell this is written to just a, common, normal individual in America who, has fallen for the narrative that all sexual relationships are good as long as it's consensual. And that's kind of who they're appealing to here, but we should know better as Christians. But it goes on to say, prostitution may be conceptually or legally defined as an exchange between consenting adults. However, the reality is that consenting adults in prostitution who are not under the control of a pimp are actually over the age of 18 and are consenting in a way that is in full alignment with what the definition of consent actually means, is a statistically rare occurrence. One study found that only 1% engaging in prostitution meet that criteria. Similar arguments rationalize that a woman should have the choice to sell her body, yet this ignores the reality that a vast majority of those that do had no real choice in the matter. I mean, folks, do you honestly think that this is a career choice that women are looking for and that they're working towards? Most of this is something that they do out of desperation because they feel like they have no choice. They feel like I can't do anything else. That's how they feel. And that's another reason too that in the pornography world, again, a lot of them, they have their pimps. And one thing that they do, they treat them like garbage. They make them think there's nothing else they can do. They make them think this is what you have to do to survive. They try to get them under their control, and they do. Not just physically, but mentally, so they won't try to escape. And so understand, this woman that's involved in this business, I hate to even call it that. I mean, folks, that's not something she wants. She's there out of desperation, and if you want to try to justify that in your mind, I think you're absolutely nuts. And I think it's no different too when it comes to the pornography industry. These people are doing it because they feel like they have no hope. And folks, I'm sure there's exceptions out there. Okay, I'm sure there's an exception, and I'm sure all those exceptions are the people that are put forward and that everyone talks about, so it can justify all the rest of the pornography in their mind. But most of these people that are involved in these things are not from good homes. They're not from stable environments. They're not people that have been educated, or they're not people that that have a lot of the things that we have that keep us in line, or that would cause us to never go into something like this. These are people who feel like this is the only thing that they are capable of doing. And someone made them feel that way. Someone took advantage of them. Maybe because they were kidnapped, or maybe because they were just someone who took someone in who felt desperate. And, we don't know the stories behind this. All I know is I don't want to be funding this industry. And this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And when you've got people out there ready to pay for a product, you better believe there's going to be some people out there ready to supply that product. And when it comes to pornography, prostitution, you need people. People are the product in that situation. And we have no right to take advantage like that and to contribute to this in any way. You say, I'm never giving anybody any money in this stuff. We're going to get to that, okay? If you're viewing pornography, you are a financial contributor to this, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and go back to this article. It says it is estimated that 65 to 95% of prostituted women and men have a history of early childhood sexual abuse and associated trauma. As one victim explained, we've all been molested over and over and raped. We were all molested and sexually abused as children. Don't you know that? The average age of entry into prostitution is between 11 and 14 years old, below the age of consent. This makes it hard to say that prostitution is a choice that a woman makes with her body. Nearly 90% of prostituted persons are controlled by a pimp. The average life expectancy for a woman in prostitution is just 34 years. And again, one of the reasons people will go into something like this. Now, thankfully for many people and for many women, it's unimaginable, doing this. The thought of selling their body, it would just be so horrible, traumatizing, and just degrading in their mind. And that's because they have a proper understanding and sense of what the sexual relationship is about. It's not just a physical pleasure thing. It's supposed to be an intimate thing. It's supposed to be something that is only done with a spouse, someone that you are close to, committed to, someone that you love. And so to do something like this, it's a foreign thought to them. But again, this is another reason there's just such an effort, and even through Hollywood, to just normalize sexual relationships outside of marriage, outside of even committed relationships. They're doing that kind of thing because, the more people that feel that way, it's kind of the easier it is to get their product. The easier it is to kind of have, people in this industry and the customers that they need. And so they're twisting people's mind on something that is a very wonderful thing that God created for a husband and wife, but wicked people are taking it and they're perverting it. And again, they're using people to do this. And so one more thing here I'll show on this particular myth. It says making a distinction between sex trafficking and prostitution is a stumbling block to really solve this problem, or to really solving this problem. As stated by a well-known expert in prostitution research, the prostitution and sex trafficking are the same human rights catastrophe. Further sex trafficking is the result of demand for prostitution. And again, I think all of us are horrified by human trafficking. And I don't know, I think probably a lot of people are like this, but when we hear stuff on the news about human trafficking, one of the reasons that this border crisis is such a horrible situation is the lack of security on our border is something that is being taken advantage of by human traffickers. We hear stories all the time about them finding trailers full of people and stuff. And I mean, the most wicked people on this planet are taking advantage of people through these things. And you know what? Most of the time when we hear these stories, you know what we do? You want to change a channel. You want to change a station on the radio. We don't like hearing about these things. It's the thought, but folks, we should think about these things to a certain extent. What if it was your children? What if it was your daughters? What if it was your wife? And when you do think about that, it'll almost drive you crazy thinking about it. But you got to understand that, statistically speaking, many of the people that are being featured and put forth in the human trafficking world or in the pornography world are people that are victims of this stuff. And so, that should make you sick. That should absolutely turn your stomach thinking about that. And so that's why maybe some of you do need to go watch some of these documentaries talking about this stuff. I said, I think you need to be careful. If you do have an innocent mind, don't do it. Don't mess that up. But if you're somebody that's been messing with this stuff, I don't know, maybe this isn't the best solution. Maybe I should ask the men I'm going to be talking about next week. But I don't know. It feels like to me that would shock it out of your system where you wouldn't want to, look at that anymore. But we've got to start understanding, the people that you're watching, they're human beings that have stories, that have history, that have families, and that are going through unimaginable things. And same thing too with the prostitution. I mean, average age 34 years. And let me just say this too. And everybody knows this. One of the things that the prostitution and drug dealing, a lot of those things kind of go together. A lot of pimps are also drug dealers. And everybody knows this. When it comes to prostitution, one of the things that pimps use to control them is drugs. They get them addicted to drugs. Why? So they will, do what they say so they can get more drugs. And again, this is unimaginable evil. This is just beyond evil what goes on in this world. And I don't want to ever do anything to contribute to it in any way. I would love to do something to stop it. And it's amazing how much trouble they have regulating pornography when they don't seem to have any trouble regulating stuff that I do on YouTube and social media. And you're going to tell me they can't regulate this stuff? I think they probably could. I think there's just too big a money behind it. They're paying off politicians and law enforcement and all that kind of stuff. But let's go ahead and read another myth from this article. Myth 3, why can't victims just escape? Why can't prostitutes just escape? Why can't they get away? That's what people think. But many of us would like to think that if we were in a human trafficking situation, we'd find a way to escape. The reality of these situations, however, often involves factors that exceed our ability to imagine from an armchair perspective. Sometimes victims are unable to escape because they are physically restrained from doing so. But often there are many other factors that keep people from fleeing their captors, as well as things like psychological bonds to exploiters like trauma bonding or Stockholm Syndrome. And that's kind of an interesting thing. I'm not going to go into that. The experience of violence, physical health, handicaps, other limitations, threat of violence to self or others, drug addiction, we just talked about that. It creates a dependence on the provider. Hopelessness, depression, despair, feeling that there is nowhere to go and no one to turn to, language barriers, and that's why they like to take advantage of foreigners. Cultural barriers, fear of deportation or law enforcement response. There's some places that are so bad, they think they'd be better off being a prostitute over here in America, but we ought to be able to provide better for them over here than that. And ignorance of their rights, isolation, shame and self-blame, sleep deprivation, food deprivation, failed previous attempts at escape. The victim's children or others that they care about are also under the control of the abuser, exploiter, or captor. In peonage or debt bondage situations, they may feel they have an obligation to pay off the debt. So, folks, these are horrible things. I mean, is this what, are you okay with this? Okay, this product that you are enjoying, that you're getting pleasure from watching. How does it make you feel that the person that's doing it might not want to do it at all, but feel like they have to, so they can, get some more drugs because somebody's got them addicted, or again, their children. It's very common for these people to, be pregnant, have babies, and then what do? They threaten them with their children. That's one of the reasons they can't escape. And the amount of children that they find in whenever there have been these stings of human traffickers and stuff, and babies, it's horrible. And folks, in some of these documentaries and things I watched, that was one of the things that I couldn't handle, is in this world, in this industry, the amount of, child molestation that goes on with little kids. And when they started talking about that, I couldn't hear it. But the same people putting out that adult stuff are the ones putting out the kid stuff too, and the homo stuff. It's the same ones, And many of these people, these young people, even if they are 18, just understand, a girl doesn't just go from being a normal, innocent girl to, as soon as she turns 18, doing porn films. She's been being messed with for years at that point. And you think, oh, it's okay because she's 18. You know, you're sick, you're twisted, you're falling for these lies from these people, and you have no idea what that girl's been through. And people have tormented them, put them through so much, messed them up, permanently scarred them, so you could get a little bit of pleasure. And you did. You helped create the demand for this in viewing pornography. And again, you might think, well, I only do the free stuff. There is no such thing, okay, as free stuff. And we'll get to that. I promise you we'll get to that here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and go to another myth. I want to make sure I get through all of this article. So it says here, there is nothing I can do. The problem is just too big. This is the biggest myth of all. The issue of human trafficking can feel very dark and overwhelming. The solution to it will take an ongoing, multifaceted, multi-sector approach, incorporating legal and systematic reforms, prevention efforts, victim identification, and provision of services, as well as an elimination of demand. No single agency or individual can do all of these things. God has gifted each of us with a unique set of gifts and talents that, when united with others in a spirit of healing, collaboration, and redemption, can be transformative. We can reach out and serve those who are vulnerable, like children from broken families, those who are suffering from homelessness or poverty. You can contact your representatives about critical legal reforms. You can speak about the dangers of pornography. There is much work to do, and it is critical that we as a community move toward action and do so with intention. And I wanted to read that to say, too, that I do believe there's a lot of truth to that, in the sense that, while anyone could be a victim, okay, don't ever think that this could not happen to you or your family. Typically, the ones that human traffickers want to take advantage of are people that society will pay less attention to. You know, obviously, if they go and they steal one of the politicians' kids, that's going to make big news, and it's going to get too many eyes on them. You know, so typically, they go for the illegal immigrants. You know, and I think that's one of the reasons they got so many of them coming in here. And while they're letting these things happen, when people are in this country illegally, they don't have as much protection, and maybe they don't have some of the same rights and things, and they're vulnerable. And so it makes it easy for just horrible people to take advantage of them. And we see too, this is something a lot of people complain about, but whenever that young, pretty, white, blonde girl, gets kidnapped or comes missing, it's like national news. But then, whenever it's the black girl from the hood, no one seems to care. And you know what? That's not right. That little girl from the hood, she has value. She's important. She has a life. She should not be taken care of or taken advantage of either. But again, society doesn't pay that much attention to it, because it's like we know there's those vulnerable people out there that are in danger. It's like we instinctively know that. And so we get freaked out when it's somebody like us that these things happen to, because then we get scared. Oh man, it could happen to them. Well, that might happen to me too. Well, you happen to somebody in the hood. I'm not in the hood. I don't have to worry about that. But that's why people care about those things more. But this is somewhere where we, as individuals, and especially as Christians, could make a difference. And that is, one, again, having good functional families is going to help a lot to keep your daughters from going into that world, but us also being loving and reaching out to other people who have difficult situations, for, ladies, and men, we should reach out to, fatherless children, and be a help to those ladies that are out there who they don't have men in their lives. Their children are valuable too. Their children are important. We need to try to get people like that in our churches, and we need to teach them the ways of God and help them. We need more of that in our churches. Why? Because we want to prevent them from going into these things and being someone that could be exploited. We've got to teach them the value that they have. We do need to look out for people. One of the things that I remember being told, there was a relative that we used to have that was in a nursing home, and one of the things that we would occasionally do, and that was go over and visit them. And this is sad, this isn't right, but they say that typically people who get visitors regularly in nursing homes get taken care of better than ones who don't. And it's because when people are going and visiting those individuals, they know, oh man, people are looking out for them. People are watching them. We better do a good job and take care of them. But there's a lot of people in nursing homes, they kind of get neglected. They don't get taken care of real well. And typically those are ones who no one visits. And I believe as Christians, we should be looking out for other people. We see in the Bible, we're supposed to be looking out for the fatherless and for widows. We see in the Old Testament, the Bible talked a lot about, judgment for the people in those areas, that it was very important. And why did, God specify those people so much? Well, for one, those who didn't have husbands, those who didn't have fathers, things were going to be much more difficult for them, but they were also people that could easily be taken advantage of. And that was another thing too. They weren't supposed to oppress a stranger. If they had a foreigner that was in their land, they had specific laws not to oppress those people. It's easy to take advantage of people like that, rather than someone who is in nobility. You're going to have a tough time in that area. And we've got to understand that, we need to start seeing people as people and as having value. And we've got to realize that there are horrible, wicked people out there looking for people that no one cares about. That's the people that they're trying to use. One that no one's going to care about. One that no one will recognize in a few years if we put these people out there on the internet or whatever. Those are the people that they're trying to, those are the ones they're going after. So you know what? We need to make sure that we're looking out for the people in our areas. We need to look out for the people, especially people that personally. And it might be, more distant family members, cousins, nieces, nephews, whatever. We've got to look out for those people. And I believe that's something that will help make a difference. So that's that article. But I do want to bring up a few other points too, even biblically speaking, okay? Well, first, before we get to the Bible on this, I do want to show you one more article, because I keep mentioning how if you view this stuff, you are contributing to the finances, to the financial success. You are helping create the demand for this industry. And so this article I want to go to, there's a famous saying that is out there, and that's, if you're not paying for it, you become the product. A lot of people think stuff on the internet is free. For example, I was able to look at this blog article for free on Forbes, but notice this Shopify Plus ad that's on here, and this Fiverr ad, and this video here on there. I mean, there's ads all over this thing. Okay, now why is this? Because somebody paid this guy money so they could put these ads on there, hoping that I would click on it. And if I click on these things, it helps generate revenue for these people. And so that's how things work on the internet world. Nothing is really free. If you're not paying money, it's because you are the product. And so let's read this in case you're not familiar with this and don't understand it. But it says the internet continues, and this is an older article. This is 10 years old. The internet continues to evolve, and with it, our privacy continues to be a matter of debate. It was once taken for granted by people who worked in advertising that a person's privacy was paramount. Then some advertisers broke that trust, and thereafter came the annoying phone calls during the dinner hour. In the last few years, our private lives have been inundated with junk mail, and our mailboxes, real and virtual, are filled to the tipping point with brand magazines and offers. Now our privacy is being challenged again, according to a news story from the BBC. This month, Google started to operate under a new privacy policy that enables the internet giant to dig even deeper into the lives of more than 1 billion users. Google claims the changes make it easier for consumers to understand how it collects personal information while allowing it to provide more helpful and compelling services. But critics disagree. Most of America's state attorney generals, along with a leading regulator in France, believe that Google is stepping too much on our right to privacy in its continuing mission to sell more advertising. So what has changed? Well, Google is bringing together more than 60 privacy policies, so it is able to gather all the data it has on each person, creating individual profiles to connect the dots from one service to another. This means Google will track what you search for in its search engine facility and then use that intelligence to its advantage. It may suggest YouTube videos you might like or simply present you with advertisement it thinks are relevant to you. It's obvious why Google is doing this. Advertising is its main source of income, boasting $38 billion every year, and it makes complete sense to offer advertisers targeted ads to the right audience because in most cases, Google only gets paid if someone clicks on an ad link. Naturally, the more relevant and successful the advertising program, the more money Google will make. But I bet you're thinking, wait just a second, how do I prevent Google from using my personal data? At the moment, you can't. Not if you're a registered user of its products such as Gmail, Google+, and YouTube, but there are some steps you can take to minimize the data collected. And then it goes on and it gives you some things you can do, and who knows if those are even relevant today. But let's go on. It says, which leads me to my final point. In this digital age, we have sacrificed our privacy in order to access all manner of free stuff on the web. It's a movement that most of us have come to accept, or have we? I'll borrow a quote I read on Metafilter recently. If you're not paying for it, you are the product. I'm not sure how many people are fully aware of this sentiment yet, or whether they even care, but the next time you're browsing the web or enjoying a video on YouTube, remember that Google is watching your every move because that's the price you pay. And so right there shows us how this works. I remember the first time I got on Google Earth. I thought it was incredible how I could literally look anywhere in the world. I could see everything. And then I was also, and I remember thinking, how is this free? I saw the Street View thing, and there's like so much information. I mean, remember when you used to have to pay for, you buy the GPSs, the TomToms. I had a TomTom or a Garmin in your car. Now you can do all that for free on your phone, but it's not free. You know why? Because of the fact that if Google knows where you're going, they know what kind of advertisements to send your way. And you know what? We all click on those things sometimes. We all use these things and they learn about us. And folks, that's why these ads come up. We swear that places like Facebook can read our minds. Okay? They can't really read your mind, but you can learn about somebody by understanding what they're searching for, at what they're looking at. Smarter people than I am it's like if they're looking at this, this, and this, and this, you know what? They're in the market for this, 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 and this. And then they send those advertisements your way. You click on them, and then those different companies end up paying them. And so understand, it's the same thing in the pornography world. Okay? Even if you're not using your credit card to purchase anything, understand they're not providing that service to you for free. Okay? You are their product. You now are a part of the industry. And I'm sure, I'm not going to go find out, I'm not going to go prove this, but I'll bet there's ads all over those things. And you've probably clicked on some of these things before. And you help them get your money. And you can tell yourself all you want, well, as long as I didn't pay any money, okay, then, but you know what? And here's the other thing too. How many products are you now thinking of? Do you now go and maybe you go buy them in a store, because you were seeing it on the internet. You didn't click on anything, but you ended up going to the store and buying something. I mean, how many of you went to a restaurant before because you saw the commercial? It's like, man, that looks really good. And you went and you got a meal. You say, nobody does that. Yes, they do. That's why they pay millions of dollars to run these ads. They know if people see this, it's going to make them more likely to use our product. And so when it comes to different websites and things, the more traffic those people are getting, the more advertisers are going to want to pay those people to advertise their stuff. And so understand, every time you're clicking on these things, you are just motivating them to continue doing more of that stuff. You're going to make it so they can make more money. What needs to happen is when somebody starts a pornography site, nobody just needs to go on it. If that would happen, no advertisers are going to pay them anything. But you know what? You go to it. You are the product. You're helping work for them by clicking on it, by viewing it, by watching it. And you can't do that. Somebody gave me this book a while back, the YouTube Formula. And it was, and it's just got a lot of detailed stuff about how you can build your YouTube channel, get more stuff out there. And I read a good chunk of this book, and frankly, a lot of it's boring. But one of the things that I forgot to mark the chapter on here. One of the things I realized, though, when I was looking at this book, it's like, a lot of this doesn't really apply to me because of the fact that I'm not really trying to build a YouTube channel. I'm trying to build a church. Okay. Our YouTube channel is really just kind of an extension of our church. Most of what's on there is preaching. And, in what they tell you to do in here is, you need to identify your audience and basically give them what they want. Well, you know what? And with analytics, YouTube analytics are pretty interesting. Sometimes, it's interesting, and I'll look at those things. And I've learned some things about my audience through YouTube analytics. One thing is my audience likes to hear about reprobates. My audience likes exposing. When I expose people, my audience likes drama. That's what they typically like. And obviously sometimes you got to talk about reprobates and dramatic things and stuff like that. But I'm actually trying to pastor a church. And so, since my focus is on our church as a whole, I preach a lot of stuff that my YouTube audience doesn't really care about that much. And because I'm trying to focus on the needs of my church. Now, if I was focused on my YouTube channel, I would be preaching a lot more sermons about reprobates. I'd be throwing way more people in hell. I would stick to the issues people like to fight with. A lot of people like when I rip on the homos and stuff like that. I'd probably do more about that. But, there really is no need for me to talk about that stuff all the time in my church. And so, at the end of the day, I'm probably never going to build, a big YouTube empire because, unless I decide to just focus more and have something separate, a lot of what I do with YouTube is meant for our church. It's the preaching for our church. It's meant to help people in our church. And obviously we use YouTube to get it out even beyond our church. But either way, I've studied the analytics, and what my YouTube audience demands and wants is not necessarily what my church needs. So I'm not really going to worry about that. But here's the thing, in the rest of the internet world, okay, they're giving people what they want. And what needs to happen, okay, you know what I wish would happen? I wish more people in my audience were interested in spiritual things and in godly things. I wish people were more interested in a message about godly character and about loving the Lord as they are about ripping on reprobates. Okay, I wish that's the kind of thing that that people clicked on. Maybe if that they did, there'd be a lot more preaching out there online about that kind of stuff. But that's not what gets people excited. And understand, we don't have a massive industry for a lot of the more wholesome things because there's not a market out there for it. Seems like everybody's perverts. Everybody wants junk. Everybody wants garbage. And there's always going to be wicked people out there ready to provide it. And, and as long as the YouTube world, all they want is just, railing and exposing this guy, exposing that person. You know what? There's going to be people out there. All right, I'll give the audience what they want. And that's exactly what they're going to do. But, I wish that kind of stuff would just get ignored. I wish people would just ignore this stuff and understand you clicking on things, it contributes to it. You are helping grow the industry, and it's a wicked industry. And I want to read a few verses in the Bible to you to kind of put some things in perspective. We see in Revelation 18, where it's talking about the destruction of Babylon. It says in verse 11, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. The only reason people love Babylon is because, they're a good customer. They buy their stuff. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and fine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory, all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble. These aren't bad things so far. These are products. And people are making money off of it. And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. That's great. That's one of the things that Babylon is known for. Buying slaves and the souls of men. You say, we don't have slavery in this country anymore. Yes, we do. Hey, if people are being forced into prostitution, that's slavery. If they're being forced into making these pornographic videos and things, that's slavery. Okay, every child that is being exploited through pornography, that is slavery. Do not tell me we do not have slavery in this country. You better believe we have it. And these things are just as wicked as you can possibly get. It says in Exodus 21:16, and he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, shall surely be put to death. That's kidnapping, folks. And this is anybody. This is a human being, not just someone under an age. Okay? When you're doing that with somebody, you need to die, according to the Bible. Leviticus 19:29. Because you say, well, this is this kind of slippery slope-ish stuff, all right? Obviously, I'm not into child pornography. I'm not into, prostitution, all that kind of stuff. I just like watching consenting adults or whatever. You're slippery slope fallacying me, all right? That slippery slope fallacy that people like to talk about. But, in Leviticus 19:29, it says here, do not prostitute thy daughter to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom and the land become full of wickedness. There is something about some sins that create more sins and that lead to greater sins. And obviously prostituting your daughter, what a horrible, horrible thing to do. But notice, one of the reasons it's so bad is it will fill the land with wickedness. How can I personally, by myself, fill the land with wickedness? You can't, but you can contribute to it. You can make it a little more normal. You can make it a little more acceptable so someone else does it too. It's just a small contribution. Yeah, you're only one of maybe millions of people clicking on this. What if, a good percentage had the right attitude that, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to add myself to the number in this area. Leviticus 18:21 says, thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Moloch, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord. Okay? In our country right now, people are freaking out because it might get harder to kill your babies in this country. And, praise the Lord for that, for, a step in the right direction. We'll see what ends up happening with that. But what a horrible thing killing your children. That's what's going on here. Goes on in verse 22, thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down thereto. It is confusion. Defile not ye yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. These type of sins defile a nation. They bring an entire nation down, even if 100% of the nation isn't doing it. Not everyone in our country participates in prostitution, pornography, but understand the amount of people doing it is bringing judgment on our nation, is bringing a reproach, it's adding to wickedness, and we all are suffering. And it goes on to say, and the land is defiled. The land is even defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomiteth out her inhabitants. Not just the guilty parties, not just the people who, did these specific things. The inhabitants of the land are getting vomited out. There's new diseases and things popping up as a result of this horrible wickedness that's going on, and people are dying, and innocent people too. It says, ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nation, nor any stranger that sojourneth among you. For all these abominations have the men of the land done which are before you, and the land is defiled, that the land spew not you out also. See that? You'll get spewed out too if this goes on. This is why he said you got to stop it. You've got to put these people to death. You can't let these things happen. The land will spew you out also when you defile it, as it spewed out the nations that were before you. So, folks, we've got to realize that this thing of pornography, prostitution, this is a stain on our country. It is an embarrassment. The human trafficking problems that are going on, our leaders should be held accountable for how bad it is. It is a shame, how much of this is going on and how little is being stopped. It is an absolute shame. And the sad thing is too, and everyone that I've talked to about this subject, the pastors I've talked to, a lot of the articles that I've read, both of the men that I talked to that I'm going to have on the show next week, one thing that they all bring up is one of the scariest things about this is the amount of people in churches that are participating in it. And not only that, but even pastors. The amount of pastors that are contributing to this. And folks, this might seem like this is such a big problem. There's so many people. Who cares? It's me. You've got to get rid of that attitude. You are contributing to the decline of our country, but you're destroying yourself even more. Okay? You are destroying yourself by being a part of this. But if we could just at least get the Christians to get their heads screwed on straight in this area, and to just absolutely abhor and reject this industry, you know what? It would hit them where it hurts, and that's in the pocketbook. And you've got to stop being their product. You might not necessarily be an employee. You might not necessarily be a customer, but many of you are products in this industry, and you need to stay out of it completely, 100%. There's nothing good about it. You need to think about who these people really are that are being used and abused and exploited. Imagine if that was somebody in your family, one of your loved ones, and let these things be something that will repulse you and cause you to just want to look away from this stuff and never, ever have anything to do with it. And so I say all this as just a way to motivate. The one I did 2 weeks ago was more to just prevent people from ever getting involved in it. For those who are innocent and haven't done it yet, for those of you that are in it, I'm just trying to give you something to repulse you, to steer you away from it. And these are all straight up truths. And I'm keeping things as G-rated as I can, because this is such a horrible, disgusting thing. And next week, we will try to give some practical advice on getting victory over this thing. You've got to do it for yourself, for your wife, for for God, for the sake of this country. You have got to get over this. And let me just tell you, the more I'm reading too about what this does to men, especially in their treatment of women, just seeing them as a commodity and stuff, the lack of respect that it causes men to have for women. Let's just say some of you out there in the online world, I'm getting suspicious of you. The way you are, I think you're revealing yourself. And you know what? I think the more we educate ourselves on this, the more that it will hopefully, because this is, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, it's something people are ashamed of. And a lot of times, we don't know how to identify people who have different problems. You have doctors that are real good at figuring out someone's sickness, just from looking at their tongue, looking in their eyes, like, hey, you got this problem. They're trained in that area. We need to train people on knowing who these people are that are struggling with this stuff. Why? Because maybe, too, this will help us identify it, if we have teenagers that are messing with this stuff. If you have a spouse that's messing with this stuff, it'll help you identify it so it can be dealt with quickly before you get in too deep. So anyway, not a pleasant subject, but one that we've got to talk about and one that we need to get victory over. So come back in 2 weeks and we will probably, I'm planning on closing out this subject. And once I close out the subject, I want to be done talking about it, because it's a very depressing thing, and I just don't want to think about it anymore. But I feel like, we cannot bury our head in the sand in this area. This is a huge problem causing a lot of damage in our churches and in our marriages and in our country. And so we're dealing with it for a few weeks, and then hopefully I can just refer people back to this stuff in the future. So anyway, I appreciate everyone watching this. Make sure you share it and get the word out on it. So God bless you. We will see you all next time.